It is recording now. Good.
All right. Good morning, Jan.
Good morning, Bruce.
That
This is
your name,
exciting.
right?
We
Jan,
wanted to
not
do this for a
Jan.
long time, and now because of this video, it's finally happening.
Yeah. Okay. And we talked about. We were both talking about this recent video, casting aspersions on your work and some of the choices that the two of us made together to include in the translation. And I did this reaction video yesterday, but I'm not as equipped for these things as you are. So we thought we'd have a conversation about some of the points that you would explain some of the thought that went into it and some of the research that went into it. Is that basically correct?
Yes. We have had great conversations earlier when we did a marathon of improving the translation. So now we can actually share some of our work with the people who are interested, who want to learn from it.
Right. This is our normal Friday call, I guess, and we're going to try to record it and let people in on the discussion basically that we're having, and hopefully some of them will be able to join in.
Yeah, it's an experiment. I'm not experienced with the technical part of it, but we'll see how it goes. And along the way, if we do this more often, it will improve. So.
Yeah. So did you have a specific term or page of the wiki that you wanted to start with?
Yes, because the video, the main part actually was about the magi or the magi, and that's a very easy one to set straight, because the reason why we chose magus is because that's singular, and magi is plural.
Right.
So Ott translated magi because he wanted to keep the original word, and that's what Sandbach also did.
So you're saying that Ott, when he translated it, because I've read through the Sandbach translation, but I don't have it as much in my head as you do. You're saying that Ott used the word magi in the singular as well. Is that?
I'm not really sure. I'm now checking. Perhaps he even had Magyar, which is magician. No, here Ott had Magy with a Y.
Magy as a singular, and we used the word magus, and I think that was one of the complaints that for some reason, magus, which is the singular form of magi, there was some consternation about that. I don't know what the allegation was that we used magus to obfuscate something.
Yeah, it's not really important, I think, but that part. As a translator, you always have the dilemma: do you keep the original word from the original language, but then people will not understand it, perhaps, and you have to explain in a footnote, or do you use a word that is a translation and that is actually understandable, but it's different from the original word?
What is the original word? Like I said, I don't have it right in my head. But what does so when they talk about the head magi, what does the original Fryas use?
Yeah, I have the screen open here. So it's mostly used in the singular in the Oera Linda text, and here I have all the different fragments. And it's mostly spelled like this, sometimes without an accent. It's also not always easily distinguishable what A exactly is used. So, and then the plural is mágjara, and that's also a little misunderstanding. Raubenheimer used the term magyarar with an R at the end, which never occurs in the texts, and it's also not a word in any language. So I think that's just an error on his part, but it's copied by people who use his translation. Also, maybe I can start with a little explanation about Raubenheimer's version of the translation.
Right, that was the main point that I think was being made in the video that we're referring to, is that Raubenheimer, his translation, and I think you have something to say about whether it actually would qualify as a translation at all, would be the most definitive version of the Oera Linda. And I don't know enough, so I'm interested to hear what you have to say. You actually had contact with Raubenheimer during his lifetime?
So in 2009 I discovered Oera Linda, and a year later, or 1.5 years later, there was a forum called Unexplained Mysteries, and there was a thread which was started because he had his book Survivors of the Great Tsunami. And I joined that discussion, and I ordered his book, obviously, also. And then I noticed that in the back of his book, as an appendix, addendum, he had a version of Sandbach's translation, which was actually changed by an English guy on the internet, Tony Steele, who also invented the Daughters of Frya fantasy. And he had changed some words to his liking. And that version, Raubenheimer thought it was the original Sandbach version. But when I pointed out that it was the adapted version by Tony Steele, he felt a bit embarrassed that he didn't know. And that's why he quickly after made a second edition of his book. And I have both the first and the second edition of his book. But it was a little more was changed, other than that he had changed the translation of Sandbach, because in the second edition he had changed some words to make it more modern English, and also to some terms that he personally wanted to change. But he never really studied the original language, so he didn't make a new translation. He only changed Sandbach's translation a little bit.
So he did some editing on the English side without reference to the original text.
We had a long discussion on that forum, and there were many instances that it became clear to me that he really didn't understand the Frya's language. Obviously some words like God and mother and Berg, but really difficult ones he didn't get. And it's not to criticize his work altogether, because he was a geologist. I think he worked in the mines in South Africa, and that's how he knew some things about geological changes.
Right. Yeah, he wrote a lot about that stuff.
Yeah, and he was a devout Christian, so he knew much about the Bible, much more than me.
Mm-hmm.
And one of his points in the book was that he thought he had proven the authenticity of Oera Linda because of the dating of the Big Flood, which was about 2,200 years before our era. But as I pointed out, there were Frisian almanacs of the 1830s who had exactly that same year for the Big Flood. So the critics can easily say, well, the creators of Oera Linda used that year of the old almanac and put it in the Oera Linda book. So it's not a valid evidence for the.
It's not a study of the language as much as it's a cross. What would you call it? kind of a geological study of the possible history of the Earth changes?
He referenced older old sources like the Bible and some other very ancient sources that I didn't know. And also he had an interesting chapter about the island Frisland, close to Greenland and Iceland, which he discovered there were underwater depth images that suggested that the Faroe Islands could be the remains of the Frisland from the old maps.
Mm-hmm. I see.
And that's actually it's one of the reasons why I decided there has to be a good new English translation. Because also Sandbach's translation was a translation of the Dutch first translation. It was also not based on the original language.
Right.
And in every translation, things get lost. So,
correct. And I think that's the thing that I think has set your work apart from those past translators, and as you can see in the wiki, is that you've done so much etymological research, whereas I think there's lots and lots of words in the original Frya's language that are obvious to speakers of modern Dutch, German, Swedish probably, and Danish, but there are many words like Ott was one of them that are not readily understandable, except for the context. I mean, the context makes them kind of obvious in that case, but that you've actually gone back and looked at where these words might have come from, or what words might have come from then. Mm-hmm. And the Magy thing, you were telling me something yesterday about an old Persian word, that the old Persian singular for a magician is magus or machus.
Yeah. So even in the official dictionaries, when you look up magi, it says it's plural from Latin magi, plural of magus, magician, learned magician, and that is from Greek magos, a word used for the Persian learned and priestly class as portrayed in the Bible. Also, there's some more, but then it says, let me see, the Dutch, it says it ultimately derives from Old Persian magus. So, and that's singular also.
Magus, it's just a slight variation in the pronunciation, and the Latin used magus, and we went with the most familiar Latinized version, magus.
I found it in English dictionaries, so I thought, well, that's a good English word that can be understood. And because you also always have the original language very close to the translation, anyone can see what the original word is.
Right.
Like here.
Yeah, especially, I mean, in the hardcover book itself, we've got it line for line. Which is basically how I learned my way into being able to help in this project. Mm-hmm. And now with the wiki, you can, with these word studies, I mean, it's just amazingly well researched and well set out. And I'm interested to see what's going to happen when other scholars, people who are maybe, neither of us is a Latin scholar. I know you had Latin. And you're better at it than I am, but there's real scholars of this stuff. And
I started with Latin and Greek, and then I chose Greek to do my exams.
Oh, you did Greek, yeah. So I mean, Latin and Greek are really there's so many, like this word magos and magos. It's hardly any different, and I'm really excited and looking forward to what's going to happen when more people get involved in this and more people with actual, disciplines that understand the greater context of what we're trying to do here.
Yeah, just to add to the context, in the text it also becomes clear that the Magyars or the Magi were involved in sorcery because of this fragment that I'm pointing out here.
Yeah.
So there is a link to sorcery also in the text. It's explained. And the idea that the Magi would be the ultimate enemy of the Frisians, it's one of them, but also the Gola, in the other texts, other Phoenicians. And from the Gola, the word is similar to, obviously to Gauls, but also to, perhaps to Gaelic. The Galai, there's so much to study, but I didn't add too many footnotes or discussion to the book because I wanted to speak the text, to let the text speak for themselves. Yeah,
the Gola is one of the things that, I mean, I understand. I think it says somewhere in the book that the Gola are Magy from Tyre or something, from what's now Lebanon.
Yeah, the missionary priests from Sidon.
From Sidon, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And there's much to say about that. It's a very big topic. We could do a special about this alone. Perhaps we should proceed to another little detail. Oh yeah, it was funny, I think, that she linked the MAGA of Donald Trump to the Magi. Because the word MAGA or MAGA in Oera Linda also occurs, and it means relatives or kinsmen.
Yeah, that's one that I don't remember this exactly from the work that I've done with the text, and that really surprised me because the Magy are the main enemies of the Fryas, and then we've got but the word in Fryas magum that means just the opposite, really, relatives and kinsmen.
I don't think these words are etymologically related, and it only occurs 3 times. And only once with an A accent up. So I think it should have been the A accent down, agum, maga. And this word also still existed in other Old languages. Old Saxon, Old German, Old Norse. And it's also it's always often related to relations through male descent or on the father's side. But well, it's a little detail. She thought she could discredit Trump with that, but it doesn't work, that trick.
But yeah, that's a point that I think we'll have to explore. Maybe.
Well, the framing, the whole video started with framing,
right?
To suggest that. Robert Seber is Jewish, and therefore, but then the example she gave, that he used the term priestesses, that actually came from Sandbach himself. Just quickly here, this is from Sandbach, where he used the term priestess. I can't read this here. Anyway, I must sound a bit chaotic now.
Yeah, well, that's okay. I mean, we're just recording a phone call. Let's just move on to maybe the next point that you wanted to make, which was.
Okay. So there's so much in the video that I could refute, but we only selected a few examples about the language mostly, which is our favorite topic. This we can do really quickly. She said that Vnfrya weld was a foreign rule or foreign domination. But Vnfrya is also unfree. It's not only it can mean Frya as an adjective can be Frya's neck or free neck. And weld actually is a word that can also doesn't have to be very negative. It's rule, force, violence, or power. But good power wouldn't be bad.
Right. Yeah, they talk about. I remember a line about the weld of the parents or something, where they talk about the authority of the parents or something like that.
It must be somewhere here in this list.
Yeah.
As an adjective, it can mean capable, powerful, able, mighty, formidable. Weldige Frya and weldige Leida. So what they meant is, here's the same fragment. They wanted to remain free from unfree rule.
Mm-hmm.
And if you translate this as foreign rule, they want to remain free from foreign rule, then it would imply that they would be okay with domination from their own people.
Right. So the idea is that Vnfrya doesn't mean unfree, but non-Fryas.
Yeah.
And it can mean that, of course.
Yeah.
But that's one of these words that it's very difficult because to un something, right? That happens a few times. Unfrei it comes up a few times. And don't let unfreie people among you kind of, and there it is, unfreie Leut. And so you're saying that the what was presented is that we translated that as unfree people. Rather than non-Fryas people.
It could be...
and we even had the word entfryast, right?
Yeah,
at some point where it's like to take away the
identity
Frya,
as a Frya,
the Frya identity. And this doesn't say unfryast or unfryas people. It says unfrya. So that it's a simple adjective in that case, unfree people.
Yeah.
That's interesting. While we're talking about this word Frya, because obviously my pronunciation of these words is awful, not having been brought up, in that region, and but so we've got the word, we call it in modern language Frisland, and not Fryslân, right? And what's your thought about the and I know that the Swedish pronounce it Frya, and so what's your take on the proper or you seem to say Frya when you talk about all of the things involved with that word.
So I think there will have been regional differences.
Yeah.
Just like the English say free and we say vrij.
Right, you say frei in Dutch, and in German is frei, and English is free, and Friesland.
Yeah, but Friesland is also already later because there has been Friso. And even the oldest texts, the oldest chronicles, they're never sure about the exact meaning.
I see. And the Frisians, right? The ones who speak the Frisian dialect or language, don't get me in trouble calling it a dialect. They spell it with a Y, right?
Yeah, in the modern Frisian spelling, yeah.
And how do they pronounce it?
Fryslân.
Fryslân. So it's more of an sound.
So Frya, I think it's both okay. It's both possible, also because in the Oera Linda there's some variety of the spelling of vrij. Sometimes it's with the I with an accent up.
Yeah.
See here? Free from ut hemada klinna. Free sa and rjochtha. Frya jefta.
Friesland and free blijven.
Free believer. So I don't really have a preference for free or vrij.
Right. Okay. It was something I just wanted to talk about. You had mentioned something about the pronunciation of your name, and I thought about the pronunciation of Frya.
Okay, let's get that straight for now. In America, Jan is a girl's name mostly. I think it's from Janet or Janice. And if people have listened to the earlier interviews I did, you know that it's Jan. It's in German and in Scandinavia and in Holland it's a very common name. It's just like John in English. So Jan, yeah.
And it's a Frya's name, right?
Yeah.
It comes straight out of the book.
Yeah, there is a chapter. Well, the Ionian Islands and the Ionians would have their name from this Jan or Jon. Here, Minerva and Jon. Where is it? Yeah, Jon's revenge.
Right, that's where it tells the story of...
Yeah. Can make it a bit bigger.
It's one of my favorite parts of the book is where they explain where the name John came from, that it's literally that the sailors are having to yell over the wind, so they can't say Johann because it would all get lost in the noise, right?
Yeah. But see, there was variety. Here I'm pointing to the different spellings in the original manuscript.
Right, right.
Jan, it means given. Jeven.
Yeah. Geven, yeah.
Yeah. So all names have a meaning, and Jan means given. But anyway, it's not. By the way, it's also interesting, funny that cat or cat would have been the pronunciation, is also a name in Oera Linda.
And kind of a villainous character.
Well, in both times there's two different cats, and the first was a berg maiden in what is now Scandinavia, and she was proud and haughty, and in the end she jumped overboard and drowned. And
we still have that area of the water is still named after this person, right? It's the Kattegat.
Yeah. And in the other version, it's in the story of Ulysses. And then she has her name was Kate. We made it Kate because Kate is an English name, and cat, people may not, we could have left it K-A-T as well, but the original is like this. Let me just show it quickly. What was the line number again? The beginning of page 76. So here, cat. This is the spelling, and in the original.
So it's exactly the same
language. It is here. See?
Cat.
Oh, cat. Yeah, quite funny.
Interesting. While we're doing that, we could also just explain that that's how, on the wiki, if you want to go to the original text, that's those page numbers and line numbers there. You just click on those, and it takes you straight to the manuscript page. So 06515 is manuscript page 65, line 15. Is that correct?
A 3-digit number is always the page number of the original manuscript, and a 2-digit number is always the line number. So here, line number 10, 5. I've only counted the 1, 5, 10, etc.
Oh, I see. So there's also a reference to each to the line numbers there. That's great.
Oh yeah, and here the line numbers are. I leave out the 0 because it's clear that's the line number. Page number is always 3 digits. And then you can see the English or the Dutch, and here it is 2 different texts. So the first part here, the second part here. Continue reading. Yeah, people should try this and experiment with it. I've got all the English translation here by chapter, and Dutch. I did a few already, but the mostly they are only Ottoma and Sandbach. Ottoma and Overwijn. Sorry.
In the Dutch, yeah.
And then from German we already have some of yours, and Overweert. It's not much yet.
Yes, that's going slow.
Yeah. Oh, that was not a hint. And then even some Spanish versions, but the word studies is maybe interesting for some people. I even already have a grammar study.
Yeah, what's the grammar study? I didn't superlatives. Okay, that's new. You put that there just recently.
Because I had the idea that Augustus may have meant highest, Hagest.
Right.
That would make sense.
Right. We still say if something is August in English, it's kind of almost kingly looking, Yeah.
The highest emperor, the emperor Augustus. at least I wanted to do this for myself. I have much joy out of making studies like this.
I see. So it's just different forms of the words that you find. That's.
And I'm still experimenting in what is the best way to present these things.
Yeah, and we'll be adding things over time.
There is this font that people can download for free, and they can actually write in this script.
Oh, so the top is an example of what the font looks like.
Yeah.
And the bottom is an actual photocopy of the text to show how close it is. That's really great.
And I can also add here that our Danish volunteer has made this, and he also does great work making subtitles for the videos.
Mm-hmm.
So just like you have helped the project a lot with the improving of the translation, and someone else with the website, and someone else with the finances. There's some great people who are helping the project, but still, it's so much work.
There's still very few people involved. I mean, it's the ones that are doing a bang up job, but it's I think the whole point of this. That's what I said in my video yesterday. The whole point of this is to get more people involved, to get more people to give resources so that they can study it and they can add to the resources. So the wiki, there's also a possibility to participate in the wiki. Is that right?
Yeah. I suggest, because that I also would like to add, that we have a forum, and it has not been promoted much, and I also think it could be improved visually. It could become more attractive.
Mm-hmm.
But there are threads about language and etymology, about the authenticity debate, and it's not only for people who believe Oera Linda is authentic.
Mm-hmm.
So even if you are convinced that it is fantasy, you still might want to discuss things, or you might want to present your evidence for your ideas. And if people have shown in the forum that they are serious and that they can create good material, then I will give them access to become an editor of the wiki. And so not just anyone, because then it might become messy.
Right, not just anyone, of course, right? But so I get it. So free participation can happen in the forum, and then if somebody gets editing credentials, they can also participate in the wiki.
Yeah, and also to add, the ideas in the video from the cat lady was, I wondered, she could have easily asked me, well, why did you translate it like this or that? And that's what the forum is great for. So if anyone else has any questions or doubts about the validity or the motives of our choices, then they can simply ask it in the forum. I'm always willing to explain, or you can do it as well. And then it can
right.
Prevent misunderstandings like the ones in the video.
Rather than constructing theories and wasting your time making elaborate videos about what must be the reason for things, we're readily available and contactable. And so,
especially when it is about etymology or language, I'm very willing to explain things. I don't always have time. There's many posts that I didn't reply to yet on this forum because I was just too busy with distributing the book and other things.
And family and everything. But I know from experience with you that I would have questions sometimes when we were going through the text the first time. And 9 times out of 10, your answer was, "Well, I've already done a post about that. You had already answered my question in the blog, and you just sent me a link to the blog. So many times, even if you can't give a drawn out answer to something, you've already done it."
Yeah, because most is still on the old weblog, which I still have. I intend to eventually have everything migrated or copied to the wiki, but most of it is still here only, and it started in 2011. This is also where for people who are interested in that, the discussions on the Unexplained Mystery forum are, with allemaal Raubenheimer and some others. So it's all here.
Yeah, and we'll put links to all of these things in the description so that people can just click on them.
Mm-hmm.
So so this thing doesn't go on forever. I mean, we didn't touch on a lot of stuff, and we're not particularly organized with the way we're doing it. But you had clicked on the page for Anfang and begin.
Oh yeah,
and thought maybe we could end with the beginning, so to speak. We'll take a look at Anfang and begin because the criticism was that we did not translate the word Anfang as beginning, because basically the way that I was thinking with this is that there's one sentence where Anfang and begin or begin they come up in the same sentence, right? So you can't say the beginning and the beginning.
Yeah.
So we had to somehow take, there it is, the third one down, vooral dat Anfang en begin. So the beginning is the actual, the way we interpreted it is that the beginning is the actual physical beginning of the universe, so to speak, whereas the Anfang is almost like the thought that came before it, the initial spark or whatever, and we had to come up with a word for that.
Well, Sandbach translated the Anfang as origin.
Origin.
Okay. Origin or beginning. So
also not bad.
Sorry?
That's also not bad, but it doesn't convey that kind of sense of movement that Anfang does.
Well, it's relevant to also go to the creation myth, in which it is explained that here, Uralda, who alone is whole and eternal, created the potential. Then came time.
Right.
Sandbach had then commenced time. So,
and that's the begin, so to speak, the way that I kind of understand it.
Yeah. Here he translated Anfang with beginning. So the Anfang, whatever it was, is older than time itself.
Right, comes before the beginning.
Yeah. And when you have the potential and time starts, then things begin to develop. Then time wrought all things. Not the creator, but time. Well, there are some contradicting things in the texts themselves as well. And in the other uses of Anfang, it is clear that it also is used for beginning and for to begin as a verb.
Did we translate it as beginning in any of the contexts? I think we must have.
Yeah, many times, most times.
Yeah, many times, because you can't use potential if they're using Anfang in the sense of beginning, then we used it that way. But if it's set together with beginning, then it's clear from the creation myth that the Anfang came before the beginning.
Yeah. It is also used more profanely, like the beginning of the harvest month.
Right, that's just a profane
beginning
usage
of the end. Here it also becomes clear that this T is just the Anfang and het einde.
It's just the article.
Yeah, and that's why I made this word study as well, because she thought that T stands for time. But that's not true. It's just, it can be at, it, to.
That was set out in the video that we were talking about. The T is somehow connotes time, so the beginning of time. And that's just simply not the case. It just means the
Anfang and the beginning. And why they added the T was probably because of they wanted to fit the word on the wheel, and they needed 6 letters. And W usually officially it's not even 1 letter, it's 2 letters, but they used it here as 1. So Uralda has 6. It can be placed around the wheel. And Tanfang and the begin, het bijin,
Oh,
It's
I
all
see. So so if we look at the wheels with the letters,
mhm.
it says to Anfang and to begin.
Yeah,
So the first one says Vralda.
yeah, Rolda, yeah. And very
The second
interesting
one
about
says,
Anfang to add, which can be interesting for some people, is that in the Tacitus text there is a Tamfana temple of the Germanic Marsi.
mhm.
And it's probably it was interpreted as a goddess, but more likely it has just been this Tanfang, where it was contemplated, the
Ah,
beginning of
that's a
time.
Latinization of Tanfang.
Yeah, it could
Yeah.
even have been the origin. It could explain the word temple, because tempus is time.
Time, yeah.
So it could be places where the origin of time was contemplated.
Mhm.
But it's a little detail for those who.
Yeah, it's how it relates to the other the official history, so to speak.
Mhm. Yeah. I think we covered Tanfang and begin. Yeah, begin is used less. It's only twice as a verb, to begin on the, and beginna. Yeah, it's obviously a cognate is begin.
Right. So
In all these
yeah,
languages.
Anfang begin we used synonymously later on in the
Yeah,
text.
but even I think it's also a little detail. The beguines. How do you pronounce it in English?
The beginning.
The beguines. Yeah? Dus begijnen in Dutch. Beguines and begars.
Yeah, I've seen that word before. I don't know exactly what that is. I've not looked
Well, it's
into it.
unclear what it's derived from. But those could have been women who still were Anfang and begin contemplators.
It certainly seems like an obvious cognate, right?
Yeah, here I listed all the spellings.
Hmm.
It's very similar to our words for begin in different
modern
languages.
language, it still appears in so many different forms. Yeah.
So I'll close these again. Yeah, we're almost an hour already.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing how
time flies when you're having fun.
We'll probably cut some of this out, but in general, I think we've addressed at least a few things and explained to people that we're all about having participatory discussions about these things, and that we're all just trying to get down to the Anfang and the begin from of where our people come from and where our great ancestors came from, and it would be sad if we allowed dissension to be sowed among people who are interested in unity, and I think that's the point that I'm trying to make anyway. And our work involves looking at the language, and that's pretty much all you can do. And hopefully at some point it will branch out into archaeology and anthropology and what else ever.
And there's
some people
even
mentioned DNA in the chat, in the comment section. I don't know. I know there's been some chatter about DNA testing, and but there's so many different facets that can be involved in this. But right now, I think looking at the language and using it as a bridge to the past is really the best thing we can do, because we've got this text.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and some notes at the end, perhaps. The fourth edition that we made together, it's almost sold out now. It was a really deluxe version. The next one will probably be smaller again, and hopefully a bit cheaper also. I don't know when I will print that. And for the Dutch translation, I think why I'm not so motivated is because it is less of a challenge as the English was, and because there's still so much work on the videos and on the wiki.
Yeah.
And I'm also recently I started doing presentations for groups of people, and there's a next one in Frisland this month. Yeah, but then the editing of these videos also takes a lot of time. And with the design of the book, which I did myself, after a few weeks I already forget the tricks of editing, of creating that such a file. And then I have to get into it again. It's a lot of work. But I will do that. So we have the most up-to-date version soon.
Yeah, we move. It's the project, especially your part of the project, is moving into a slightly different phase. It's not just about promoting the idea that this book exists. Like now, it seems that lots of people understand that it exists, and we're hoping people are more interested in getting into the nuts and bolts of all of it. And the interesting thing is, though, it's very hard to stay on top of it, because even just since we've done the last revision of the book, we've already discovered 3 or 4 different things that slightly changed the nuance of how a word is understood, and in the historical, like with the magus, what we talked about before. So it's just, there's more. It just keeps going and going and going. It's like you never get to the end of the exploration of certain things, and so that's why it takes a lot. We'll get involved and bring this thing even further to the world.
Yeah. Well, Bruce, let's
all right. Well, why don't we wrap it up so that we
this was
can
a good
put
first.
This online.
We're talking at the same time.
Okay, Jan. Well, thanks for your time. This kind of turned into more of like an interview style thing, because I don't have as much to contribute as you do. So I'm glad that you took the time to kind of explain some of these things to me, and hopefully other people will find it interesting as well.
Yeah, I'll do a rough edit. I will not go perfectionist on this one.
Nah.
So we can have it up today. It's Friday. It's a good day for something like this.
That's right. So, all right, then thanks. Have a good day, and I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, talk to you soon.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.